Okay, everyone, I'll say at the outset, when they were casting this show, they got it right, especially Rhaenyra. Lots of close ups of Emma Darcy in this episode because Rhaenyra now sits the Iron Throne and is suddenly confronted with the complications of rulership, as well as nasty surprises left for her by her enemies. Now, the action in this episode all happens in her facial expressions, and Emma Darcy was born to do this type of screen acting. Now, as we already know, Larys Strong, Aegon's master of whisperers, emptied the treasury before fleeing King's Landing with Aegon. Now, the empty treasury causes chaos up and down the economic ladder. Rhaenyra, for example, can't afford to pay for her own coronation. She's advised by her new mistress of whisperers, Mysaria, that a coronation would be unwise since the people are starving as a result of the blockade. Trade will be restored, but it will take time. Now, Prince Daemon is like, the small folk? Really? They scapegoat the wealthy. As it turns out, though, Rhaenyra's heart goes out to the small folk. Now, we could focus on the cynical reasons why. She could be a populist like Julius Caesar, and this episode, to some extent, gives us Julius Caesar, who championed the common people at the expense of the elites and became immensely powerful using that strategy. But this episode gives us a different take on Caesar. We're shown it would be a mistake to craft a biography of Caesar using only the witness accounts of those who hated Caesar. Speaking of which, the episode even opens with the surrender of Aemond Hightower. Now, we thought it would be a battle, but no. Now, Aemond bends the knee and is told by Daemon to return in peace to Old Town, but not before giving up Daeron Targaryen as a hostage. Now, Daeron is the fourth child of Alicent and Viserys and is Rhaenyra's half-brother. Daeron was fostered by Aemond. Now, we saw this in Game of Thrones as well, with Theon Greyjoy fostered by Ned Stark after the Ironborn rebelled against King Robert. Theon became a political hostage as part of a negotiated peace. Daemon, when he returns, tells Rhaenyra she should kill Daeron. He's a threat to her rule, like Aegon and Aemond. And she considers it. Daeron doesn't speak for most of the episode, and at one point Rhaenyra watches him sleeping. He's completely powerless as her prisoner, and it appears that Aemond believed she would kill the child. It's a major theme this episode. Will Rhaenyra brutally crush the powerless or show mercy? The small folk petition her for their needs, and it's the job of the ruler to hear their petitions. Madame Sylvie appears before Rhaenyra to ask for justice because during the war, the nobles hoarded food for their storehouses, not for their tables, but to hoard just in case they would need it, leaving the small folk to starve. Now, Rhaenyra is shaken to hear about that. She receives reports of further lack. The hunters have nowhere to hunt for food. The dragons keep taking the sheep, leaving no wool for the weavers. Now, the castle is low on supplies as well, and there's no money to restock. Now, Rhaenyra sees there are rats all over the castle. Now, later, in lieu of a coronation, she invites the lords for a banquet where she toasts them for swearing fealty and paying tribute. But when the food is brought out, she serves them baked rats. She tells them, this is what the small folk had to eat when you took all the grain for your storehouses. Even now, the gold cloaks are raiding your storehouses in my name. Now later, Rhaenyra distributes the food to the small folk herself, and they cheer her. Now it's a classic Julius Caesar move. Crush the oligarchy and redistribute their property to the poor. Not surprisingly, this makes her some new enemies among the elite. Rhaenyra can't help herself, though. She admits to Mysaria that she feels such rage after losing two of her sons. She even hallucinates this episode that she sees Jace walking the halls of the Red Keep. Now, turns out to be someone who looks like him. Now, Mysaria was once destitute as a sex worker in Flea Bottom, so she supports Rhaenyra's populist turn. Daemon, on the other hand, tells her it's all just trifling nonsense. They have dragons. They could conquer Dorne, Essos, the Free Cities, then Etie and its riches. Now, he reminds her of the prophecy. But Rhaenyra says Viserys told her that dragons were a power no man should trifle with. Daemon replies, Viserys renounced his dragon. He never strove for greatness. Rhaenyra reminds him that old Valyria ended in the Doom. Let us take King's Landing before we lift our eyes to the horizon, she says. Now, Daemon accepts her decision, and I believe he's not as callous as he proclaims. For example, in this episode, they find out Aemond killed Sir Simon Strong and his sons, and Daemon is upset to hear it. Rhaenyra wants to put a bounty on Aemond and Aegon, but the treasury's empty, so they can't pay the bounty. Rhaenyra says whoever kills Aemond One Eye can take Harrenhal. As for Aegon, Alicent suggests declaring he's dead. He's scarred and burned. No one recognizes him. If he returns, they can declare him an imposter. Rhaenyra tells her, "You're still pleading for his life." Alicent is like, "Can you blame me? You killed my father." Helena asks Rhaenyra if killing Otto Hightower made her feel better about losing Jace. Rhaenyra responds that she would rather have killed Aegon, as she and Alicent had agreed, because Otto Hightower probably would know where the treasury money is being kept. But Rhaenyra goes with Alicent's strategy of declaring Aegon to be dead. There won't be a coronation, so Rhaenyra wants the Septon to anoint her as queen. He refuses, saying he anointed Aegon as king just a few months ago. It wouldn't look right to declare that the gods had suddenly changed their minds. Rhaenyra says, well, the gods have obviously chosen me to rule because Aegon is dead. The Septon says, I hadn't heard that and I haven't seen his body. And it turns out that arguing theology with the Septon turns out to be a mistake. He says dragons are evil. They don't create, they can only destroy. So he's cut from the same cloth as the High Septon from Game of Thrones. All cynicism. The Septon here as well warns Rhaenyra, do not make an enemy of the faith. It binds the people and gives them comfort. Underestimate it at your peril. Now, strangely enough, there's only one petition this episode that Rhaenyra denies, or one type of petition. Corlys Velaryon asks Rhaenyra to legitimize his sons. Corlys intends to make Alyn his heir. Now, that's a problem for Rhaenyra because her son Joffrey, although he's the child of Harwin Strong, their last remaining child left alive, is a Velaryon through Rhaenyra's marriage to Laenor Velaryon, and he should become the heir to Driftmark. Now, later in the episode, Rhaenyra has the 3 dragon seeds knighted by Daemon, but denies them noble names. Now, in doing this, she's at least consistent in denying legitimacy to bastards. Ulf wants to be styled as Sir Ulf Targaryen, but she rejects that, and he's styled as Ulf the White. Now, she has Addam styled as Sir Addam of Hull. Hugh is styled as Sir Hugh the Hammer. Now, Hugh wants to know what he can expect in terms of a living because his wife had to flee and is staying with her brother in Tumbleton. Rhaenyra says, we'll set up a house for you on Visenya's Hill, but she doesn't give him a timetable. Now, Corlys confronts Rhaenyra. He says, I gave up everything to serve you and your claim to the Iron Throne. My life is in ruins because of this service. Rhaenyra says, I've sent for Joffrey to be brought here. He's heir to the Iron Throne now. And she tells Corlys in so many words, it wouldn't do to raise up every bastard born outside of noble wedlock. Then Corlys snaps at her. He loses his mind a little bit. He tells her, Joffrey is a bastard. Lucerys was a bastard. Jace lived and died as a bastard. Now, Sir Luther Largent of the Goldcloaks is with them and says, Lord Corlys, that's going too far. Now, Corlys tells Rhaenyra, you are denying to my sons what you claim for your own sons. And that's true. Rhaenyra is being a hypocrite. However, Corlys himself refused to acknowledge Alyn and Addam for decades, many decades. They grew up without a father and without a name, and that was his fault. Now, he's finally seen the error of his ways, but for decades he was guilty of the same sin as Rhaenyra. Now, he's on the other side of it now, being sinned against rather than sinning, feeling the same pain that Alyn and Addam have felt all these years. And it drove him a bit mad. Now, the episode concludes with Rhaenyra's decision to send Daeron to the Wall. She tells him, your elders betrayed me. It wasn't your fault. You'll join the Night's Watch. It will be difficult, but you can find a life of honor there. Now, she wants him to meet with Alicent before he's sent away. Now, Alicent hasn't seen Daeron since he was a baby. He was sent to Old Town right after he was born. Now, when Alicent sees him, the look on her face tells Rhaenyra, it's not Daeron. Then he opens his mouth and admits that Aemond Hightower bleached his hair and is holding his mom hostage. Now, Rhaenyra orders all of the Hightower banners in King's Landing to be burned. Then one of the Dragon Keepers arrives. He just escaped from Tumbleton, which Aemond Hightower has captured. Tumbleton is loyal to Rhaenyra. The Greens took the city because Rhaenyra would have to use dragonfire on her own people to recapture it. Rhaenyra glares into the burning pile of Hightower banners. End of episode. Now, Hugh Hammer's wife is in Tumbleton, so this sets up a hostage situation yet again. Now, some other details this episode include Rhaenyra discussing Aemond's disappearance after arriving at Harrenhal and killing everybody. She says he and Vhagar haven't been seen for days. Now, Daemon mentions there's a woman there, a maester of sorts. He's referring to Alice Rivers. Maester Orwyle says, I've not heard tell of her. And Rhaenyra tells Daemon to fly to the Vale to collect tribute from Lady Jane Arryn, who promised but hasn't paid a tribute in swords. She can pay her debt now in coins, Rhaenyra says. So, next episode, Daemon could fly to the Vale and discover his daughter Rhaena was Sheepstealer's rider who caused the death of Jace at the Battle of the Gullet. And there can be no doubt Lord Corlys could pay a price for calling Rhaenyra's children bastards. Now, I was shocked he did that. He's Hand of the Queen, but Rhaenyra called him useless this episode. The show is setting up a breach between these two main characters over the issue of legitimacy in terms of the family and the realm. Both are chasing legitimacy, and it's a battle they'll both be hard-pressed to win. Corlys had told Rhaenys that history doesn't remember blood, it remembers names. But the Targaryens always have been about blood. Fire and blood. Starting with Aegon's conquest, they've never let formalities stand in their way. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.